Welcome back to the I Take History with My Coffee podcast, where we explore history in the time it takes to drink a cup of coffee. Spanish agriculturist Gabriel Alonso de Ayala noted in 1513, "Today a pound of mutton costs as much as a whole sheep used to, a loaf as much as a fanega of wheat, a pound of wax or oil as much as an arroba did in those days," and so on. The 16th century was a tumultuous period of profound economic upheaval across Europe, marked by a sustained and dramatic increase in the prices of goods and services. Known as the price revolution, this inflationary trend reshaped the continent's economic landscape, impacting every aspect of society, from social structures and government finances to trade networks and the lives of ordinary people. Scholars and economists have sought to unravel the causes of this period of sustained inflation, offering several theories to explain the interplay of economic forces at work. At the core of the price revolution was a steep rise in prices, with the cost of many goods multiplying several times over. This inflation affected consumer goods, wages, rents, and the overall cost of living, generating widespread social and economic tensions. Contemporary observers were often at a loss to explain the phenomena, and scholars since have proposed a variety of theories to understand its underlying causes. Three primary explanations have emerged: the influx of precious metals from the Americas, demographic changes that strained resources, and increased velocity of money circulation. Each theory offers a distinct perspective, and taken together, they provide a more comprehensive view of the price revolution's complexity. One of the most widely accepted explanations centers on the role of precious metals, particularly silver and gold, that flowed into Europe from the newly discovered Spanish colonies in the Americas. Known as the monetary theory, this explanation suggests that the sudden increase in bullion led to a devaluation of currency relative to goods, resulting in widespread inflation. The underlying logic of this theory draws heavily on the quantity theory of money, a foundational principle in classical economics. The quantity theory posits that an increase in the money supply with stable level of goods will drive prices upward. The Spanish colonial ventures, particularly the silver mines at Potosi in Bolivia and Zacatecas in Mexico, yielded vast quantities of silver that flooded European markets. As more money entered circulation, its purchasing power diminished, contributing to a general rise in prices across the continent. 16th century French scholar Jean Bodin was one of the first to connect the influx of American bullion to inflationary pressures, laying the foundation for the monetary theory that resonates with many historians and economists. The sheer volume of precious metals pouring into Europe from the New World and the theory's straightforward logic made this explanation intuitively appealing. However, the monetary theory has faced significant criticism, as scholars have questioned the simplicity of its proposed cause and effect relationship. For instance, inflation patterns were not uniform across all goods or consistent across Europe. Some regions saw pronounced price rises early in the 16th century, while bullion imports peaked later, suggesting that other factors might also have been at work. Additionally, evidence suggests that the decline in the value of money began in some cases well before the major influx of New World silver. Developments in monetary thought, such as recognizing the importance of effective demand and liquidity, have also called into question the straightforward assumption that an increase in the money supply automatically translates into higher prices. This variability highlights the need for a nuanced perspective that considers additional factors beyond the money supply alone. Nonetheless, the monetary theory continues to hold sway in many historical analyses, as the influx of precious metals from the Americas undoubtedly played a significant role in shaping the economic landscape of early modern Europe. Another prominent explanation for the price revolution emphasizes the role of demographic shifts. Following the population dissemination caused by the Black Death and successive plagues, Europe's population rebounded dramatically in the late 15th and early 16th centuries, particularly in Western Europe. This population surge increased the demand for essential goods like food, clothing, and housing, straining agricultural and industrial production capacity. As demand outpaced supply, prices rose, especially for necessities, illustrating inflation driven by supply and demand dynamics rather than monetary factors alone. Population theory is valuable for highlighting the role of real economic factors beyond currency supply. It also accounts for the observed uneven price increases, as goods like agricultural products, which were inelastic in supply, would have been particularly susceptible to demand pressures. This helps explain why some goods experienced steeper price hikes than others, aligning with regional and sectorial price disparities seen during the period. This theory underscores the fundamental limits societies face in meeting the basic needs of their expanding populations by emphasizing this mismatch between population growth and productive capacity. Nevertheless, the population theory also faces its own challenges. Quantifying the impact of demographic changes on prices is methodologically complex, and disentangling these effects from other economic factors is difficult. Some scholars argue that population growth alone may not account for the magnitude and persistence of the inflationary period, suggesting that an integration of monetary and non monetary factors is necessary for a complete understanding. The population theory remains a valuable perspective, though, reminding us that the economic disruption of the 16th century was not solely the result of financial or monetary forces, but also deeply rooted in the fundamental realities of production, consumption, and the constraints of the physical world. A third perspective on the price revolution focuses on the velocity of money circulation, essentially, the rate at which money changed hands. During the 16th century, expanding trade networks and early capitalist practices accelerated economic activity across Europe. As trade intensified and more people engaged in frequent economic exchanges, money circulated faster, amplifying demand and exerting upward pressure on prices, even if the overall money supply remained stable. The velocity theory stresses that this higher turnover rate in spending, rather than just the increase in the money supply, was a key driver of the sustained price rises. This theory also challenges the assumption that the mere expansion of the amount of money was the primary culprit. This perspective provides a more dynamic view of inflation, emphasizing the quantity of money and the speed of its movement through the economy. One of its key strengths is its ability to account for the observed uneven price effects. This theory explains the uneven price effects observed in different goods and regions by accounting for the pace of transactions. For example, sectors involved in high frequency transactions would have felt inflationary pressures more acutely than those with lower transaction volumes. This interpretation aligns with the broader transformations of the period, including the growth of urban centers, trade hubs, and new financial practices. Despite its strengths, the velocity theory also encounters challenges. Quantifying changes in money velocity using historical data is difficult, and historians lack reliable transaction records from the period. Additionally, some scholars question whether velocity changes alone can account for the sustained inflation observed, reinforcing the argument that a more comprehensive explanation is needed. While each theory offers insights into specific aspects of the price revolution, the complexity of the period suggests that no single factor can fully explain it. Many historians advocate for a more integrated approach that combines monetary, demographic, and velocity factors. The uneven price increases, regional variations, and evolving trade networks of early modern Europe indicate that these forces were interconnected, shaping inflation in multifaceted ways. Evidence of this interplay is seen in the emergence of an increasingly integrated European market, where economic news and trends, such as shortages, bankruptcies, or currency fluctuations, could rapidly spread and influence prices in distant locations. Historians have identified key trading centers, such as Seville, Antwerp, and others, as potential hubs that played a pivotal role in transmitting these economic ripples across the continent. The efficiency of trade and communication networks, even in an era before modern transportation and communication technologies, enabled the propagation of price movements with a surprising degree of coordination. The impact extended beyond the European continent, reaching distant regions like Muscovy, the Ottoman Empire, and even as far as the Americas and parts of Asia. The influx of American silver, in particular, acted as a transmission belt that linked the economic fortunes of these disparate regions to the broader inflationary trends unfolding in Europe. By tracing the transmission of price movements and the flow of precious metals across Europe and beyond, historians can gain deeper insights into how local economies were integrated into larger regional and global systems. This, in turn, can help illuminate how the price revolution manifested and impacted different sectors and regions, rather than being a singular, uniform experience. The economic upheaval of the price revolution had profound consequences for European society. One significant consequence was that rising prices eroded real wages, as the rising cost of living outpaced the growth in wages. This decline in real wages had particularly severe consequences for the poor and working classes, who faced increasingly difficult living conditions as the cost of essential goods outpaced their earnings. This erosion of purchasing power contributed to growing social tensions and inequalities, as the benefits of the inflationary trends tended to accrue more to the wealthy landowners and merchants. They generally fared better, as they could command higher prices for their goods and land. The inflation also destabilized the banking sector, which relied on a relatively stable currency for lending and transactions. The rapid devaluation of currency units and account books led to the collapse of several banks, undermining access to credit and financial services, and further complicating economic transactions for individuals and businesses alike. This banking crisis contributed to the broader economic challenges of the period, highlighting the interconnected vulnerabilities within the early modern European economy. Governments, too, felt the strain as the rising cost of goods and war expenditures depleted state treasuries. Despite efforts to increase revenue, countries like Spain struggled with mounting debts, resulting in insufficient financial measures. This fiscal instability weakened the state's ability to maintain order and provide military support, fueling political and social tensions. In this sense, the price revolution intensified the evolving relationship between states and their citizens as governments grappled with the economic pressures of an increasingly interconnected and volatile marketplace. The deepening of class divisions, the destabilization of the banking sector, and the strains on state finances set the stage for further social, political, and economic changes. The price revolution also intersected with broader economic cycles and long term trends that have since influenced interpretations of this period. Historians point to secular trends, centuries long cycles of economic expansion and contraction that shape the broader context for 16th century inflation. Scholars have identified several of these long waves, with peaks around 1350, 1650, 1817, and potentially the mid 1970s, each marking a transition point where growth slowed and decline set in. This perspective suggests that the price revolution may have been one stage in a longer trajectory of economic transformation, rather than an entirely unprecedented event. Recognizing these extended cycles enriches our understanding of how economic and social changes intersect over time, highlighting the importance of long term analysis in contextualizing historical shifts. Today, some scholars have challenged the very concept of a price revolution, arguing that the term overstates the magnitude and novelty of the inflationary trends observed in the 16th century. They argue that the concept of a sudden and dramatic revolution in prices may not accurately reflect the more gradual nature of the inflationary trends observed across Europe. Some have proposed alternative frameworks, such as the notion of a long price revolution that unfolded over a more extended period to better capture the nuances of the economic changes during this era. Critics have pointed out that price rises, while significant, were not necessarily as dramatic or universally catastrophic as the traditional narrative suggests. They have also questioned the validity of the orthodox explanations, particularly the monetary theory's reliance on the quantity theory of money. Furthermore, the relationship between inflation and the rise of capitalism has been the subject of intense scholarly debate. Influential theories of scholars like Earl J. Hamilton suggest that profit inflation contributed to the growth of capitalist enterprises. Profit inflation refers to a situation where companies increase their prices beyond what is necessary to cover rising costs, leading to higher profit margins. This usually happens when external factors, such as supply chain disruptions, labor shortages, or increased demand, push up the prices of goods and services. And companies take the opportunity to mark up their prices even more than their actual increased costs justify. Profit inflation has been a topic of economic debate, particularly during periods of significant economic disruption, like the recent pandemic or wartime economies. Critics argue it reflects greedflation, where companies exploit inflationary conditions to enhance their profits at the expense of consumers, adding additional burdens to the cost of living. Other historians, on the other hand, have argued that the link between inflation and capitalism was more complex and nuanced. Regional variations in price trends and the diverse nature of capital investment during this period suggests that a single factor like profit inflation cannot explain capitalism's development. Instead, the transition towards modern capitalism was a slowly evolving process, with the price revolution representing just one aspect of a much broader and more complex historical transformation. Finally, the debates surrounding the price revolution highlight the methodological challenges inherent in the study of historical prices and economic data. The reliance on imperfect historical records, the difficulties in converting between different currencies and units of account, and the complexities of disentangling the various factors that influence price movements have all contributed to the ongoing scholarly disagreements. These debates underscore the need for a multifaceted approach to studying the price revolution, one that takes into account the diversity of regional experiences and the limitations of historical data. Rather than a single, clear-cut explanation, the price revolution is best understood as a convergence of monetary, demographic, and social factors that together reshaped early modern Europe's economic foundations. The price revolution of the 16th century was a watershed moment in European economic history, setting the stage for profound social and political transformations. While the influx of American silver, demographic shifts, and increased money circulation each contributed to inflation, these factors did not operate in isolation. Instead, they were intertwined with regional variations, long-term economic cycles, and an expanding global trade network, creating a complex web of economic forces that shaped early modern Europe. Examining the price revolution through these varied lenses provides deeper insight into the origins of capitalism, the formation of national economies, and the pressures that drove social and political change. The period's legacy lies not only in the economic theories it inspired, but also in the understanding that historical change is rarely attributable to a single cause. In this light, the price revolution exemplifies the intricate interplay of factors that drive significant historical transformations, offering valuable lessons for historians and economists alike. As always, maps and other supporting resources for all episodes are listed in the episode description. In the meantime, for more historical content, please visit the I Take History with My Coffee blog at itakehistory.com, and also consider liking the I Take History with My Coffee Facebook page. Feedback and comments are welcome at itakehistory@gmail.com, or you can leave a review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. You can also help support this podcast by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/itakehistory. If you know anyone else who would enjoy this podcast, please let them know. And thanks for listening.